Ireland, Autumn Nations Cup, 31 points to 16 winners over Scotland. Pretty comfortable in the end. They were under the pressure a bit early, but I feel like maybe this is a game where they turn a corner. I don't know, it's hard to say, it's just one game. For Scotland, maybe it's a bit disappointing. This seemed like the best chance in quite some time to maybe nick one over Ireland early on. They did look, at the races, but it just all fell apart for Scotland as Ireland shifted up a gear. But yeah, I'll go through some of the key events of this game, having just watched it, delayed, and not knowing the results, seeing it was on in the middle of the night for me here in New Zealand. Go over some stats and whatnot, and yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts on how you thought this one went. But yeah, first scrum was steady. Hogg missed a high ball, and Peter O'Mahony put in a grubber kick. It was kind of all happening in the first few minutes. His grubber kick, though, was a bit too big. But there's a few events in this game which make you think Peter O'Mahony kind of fancied himself a winger. Maybe he's a winger at heart who just happens to be a flanker. I don't know. 6 minutes, Sexton misses a very kickable penalty after Richie's penalised at the breakdown. So that's maybe a slightly ominous one for Ireland. Jaco van der Walt also misses one for Scotland. It's his first ever kick on debut. He's 45 metres. It's pretty much straight out in front. He puts boot to ball, and it's not bad. It has the distance, but it hits the post. That was also from a breakdown penalty. So it's still 0-0 after 10 minutes. 12 minutes. Van der Walt makes up for his previous miss. It's a much easier kick, and he nails it. Ireland were offside for that one. 3-0 to Scotland. Ireland miss a liner. I think it's their only miss of the game. I think they were pretty much spot on, but there was one miss early. Jaco van der Walt knocked it on at one point. At that point, I thought this game is threatening to be a bit of a stinker. Early, I was just thinking, if the execution levels are going to be like this for the rest of the game, it might not be the best watch. But both sides, I thought, picked up. Scotland first. They got a penalty at the scrum. I think it was kind of Fagerson maybe getting the better of Healy on that one, and it's a penalty that's kickable, so it's 6 points to 0 in Scotland's favour. And I tipped Scotland for this one. I know they were underdogs if you looked at the bookies, if you looked at the algorithms, predictions, but just on form, I thought maybe Scotland. And I was feeling pretty clever about myself at 6-0. 22 minutes, though, a better strike from Sexton sees them go back within 3. It's a penalty, so it's 6 points to 3. 25 minutes, though, Scotland go through some phases. Duan van der Merwe has a nice little run, and they get a penalty at the breakdown, so it's 9 points to 3. Once again, I'm feeling pretty smart about picking a potential upset. But it must be from about this point that Ireland suddenly wake up and realise there's a test match on and they're in it. Because boy, do they kick up the physicality. They finally start getting some go forward. They initially kind of mess it up when they go into Scotland's 22. Because they get some go for ball, and the ball kind of pops out of the back of a ruck, and there's no scrum half there for Ireland to pick it up. So Price helps himself to it. It was a bit of a lacking one for Ireland, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Peter O'Mahony on the half an hour mark. He goes down the right wing. As I said, he's floating out on that right wing quite often. He lines up Ali Price, and all he does is tuck the shoulder, man. He's not going around him. He's not passing him. He lines him up, and he just barrels straight through him. And yeah, Price has no chance. So yeah, good effective play from Ireland. The TMO has a look from that same play. I think a phase or two later, they get the ball out. Ireland, they're going left, and Duncan Taylor puts in a tackle. But as he's doing so, he kind of whacks the ball. It's ruled to be a deliberate knock-on. So it's a yellow card. Ireland take the penalty, so it's 6 points to 9. And then a few minutes later, Earls gets the first try of the game. They have advantage. It's a messy one, but the commentators on my feed anyway were calling for it. They were like, for God's sake, if you've got advantage, don't just kick it away and go for the penalty. At least have a throw of the dice. And they did it. Sexton puts a kick over into the Scottish in goal. I think Henshaw's going for it. He's competing with somebody else, one of the Scottish players. The ball goes loose. Price tries to get to it, but it is that man Earls who gets to it. First, it was Graham that was going for it with Henshaw, but none of them can get to it. Earls is the first man. They check the grounding, and it's all good. They missed the conversion, but it's 11 points to 9. And Ireland are in front. They've managed to get 8 points from that yellow card, which is pretty profitable. Second half, I think the yellow card's still got like a minute left, but Taylor comes back on. 43 minutes, I wrote down a note. Ireland picking up where they left off, because they sure did. And I guess from a Scottish point of view, Gregor Townsend mentioned it in the post-match that like he's pretty frustrated with the end of the first half and the start of the second half. But I really think this started prior to that, just either side of half-time. Ireland were looking the business before they actually managed to get the tries. But anyway, it's an on-field try. The TMO has a look, and it's Healy on 43 minutes. They were just like a metre out and just banging on into that wall of Scottish bodies, and eventually they managed to get over. I think Johnny Gray went low, and Healy actually kind of managed to get over the top of him, but yeah, Peter O'Mahony was shoving him over, and it's 18 points to 9. At that point, Ireland are looking pretty hard to catch, and then 49 minutes, Keith Earls gets his second try of the game, the veteran. I wrote down Ireland are relentless at this point, and this was giving me kind of, I don't know, giving me memories of the Irish team that we're kind of more used to seeing. Like, I don't know, I don't want to say 2018 yet, but it was just that relentless go forward. The forwards were just getting that dominance, and they were just seeming like they were going to grind Scotland into the dust. They went, I don't know, left wing, and 25 points to 9. Great finish from Keith Earls. Hell of a try. He was looking pretty sharp out there. That being said, on 55 minutes, Duan van der Merwe gets maybe the best try of the game. It's the only one for Scotland. Scotland are like 12 phases, smashing themselves into the Irish defensive wall, and it looks like they're going absolutely nowhere. You're thinking at some point they've got to try a miracle because there's nothing doing here. Duan van der Merwe picks the ball up from the back of the ruck, and he manages to just go just the side of the ruck. He beats the tackler, runs a great line, and man, he's got some proper power. He's got some proper gas. Individual little moment of brilliance, that one, because they were going nowhere up until that point. And it's 25 points to 16. Suddenly seeming like game on. 62 minutes. They did check for an eye gouge on Fraser Brown, but the ref and the TMO had a quick look and couldn't see anything. There was like a hand around the face, but nothing near his eyes, although the ref did say they'll check that more after the game, but they didn't want to stop for too long. Sexton went off with a bit of a sore leg by the seam of things. Ross Byrne on 65 kicks a penalty after a big Irish period of pressure, 28-16. Ireland goes 17 phases. On like the 74th minute, Peter O'Mahony again. Acres of space on the right wing. Stockdale floats a nice ball to him. And he scores a hell of a try. He could almost play rugby league the way he finished that one. That big body of his getting it over the line. But he had a foot and touch right beforehand. And he was pissed off that was called foot and touch. But he did have a foot and touch. He really wanted that try. Anyway, they go back for a penalty and it's 31-16. So that's the way it finishes. Ireland, man, were just too good. Pleasing to see them kind of back for where they should be, man. That performance levels that we kind of expect. Scotland, I mean, like I said, I tipped them and they looked decent early, but they just, they couldn't match the physicality of the Irish guys as the game went on. They conceded more penalties, 15-10. A lot of them at the breakdown. I think a few at scrum time. Doris gets player of the match. The Irish finished with 61% possession, 66% territory, so they were in control of the game. The run meters finished pretty even, 236 to 233, although on the feed I've got here on the TV it says 593 to 511. I guess the way each broadcaster calculates it's different. I think I'm going to go with the 236 one. Defenders beaten is actually in Scotland's favour, 22 to 12, but when you look at clean breaks, it's 5-3 in Ireland's favour. Turnovers conceded is an absolute killer for Scotland, 13-4. So Ireland much better at looking after the ball, which was nice. Ireland's tackling percentage actually ends up only being 83% because they missed a heap of tackles in that early period of the game when they weren't looking sharp. But once they kicked it up that notch, the defense looked much better. I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know who had a word with who, but I'm sure Peter O'Mahony just gave them the look, and everyone just started worrying more about him and then decided to play better, lest they face his kind of wrath. Scotland had to make a ton of tackles. Remember I said Ireland made 110? Scotland had to make 173, and they tackled at 94%, but man, you tackle that long and you're going to be struggling. And also the kicks through for Ireland were effective. Like, there's been this narrative that, the kicking is boring. Like, every time Sexton was kicking to Earls, I was on the edge of my seat in this game, man, because it was just dangerous and it was accurate for the most part. And the ones which were not gathered were going into touch in a pretty, a good tactical position. So, yeah. Earls finishes with 33 run meters and 2 clean breaks. 2 tries. Duan van der Merwe finishes with 72 run meters, 5 defenders beaten and 2 clean breaks. But Scotland didn't have more of that. He was kind of the main man for that. Stockdale had 88 run meters at fullback. Doris, 4 defenders beaten, so good shift carrying for him. Johnny Gray had 19 out of 19 tackles. James Ryan had 13 out of 13 tackles. So 2 of the better locks in the world, showing that they can put in a proper shift defensively. Yeah, but that's it. That's the game. Ireland, too good. Just weird kind of microcosm of Ireland for this recent period under Andy Farrell, being both strangely disappointing and then showing that they can actually be that team which they have the potential to be. So yeah, it's only one game, so we won't read too much into it. When we get a break now, we go back into club rugby, or at least Champions Cup and whatnot's back on. So yeah, we'll see how these teams go for the Six Nations. Scotland, as I said, will be disappointed that they couldn't get a bit closer. They started early, but just couldn't match the intensity as the game went on. But anyway, if they could play for longer, they might have been able to challenge. But anyway, we'll see how things go in the Six Nations for next year. But yeah, what do you guys reckon about this one? Was I kind of drinking too much of something to be thinking that Scotland could get their first win in Ireland in such a long time? Or did Ireland's kind of shift up in performance kind of take you by surprise as well? Or did you see it coming? Anyway, you guys have any thoughts? And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.